either way. Even the young men, now that you know you fathered somebody, you're no longer part of my list of the people whom I'm sending to school. So I'm terminating your education, and that is it. Go fend for your family. Does it not happen?
It does happen.
To the young men in the room, does it not happen?
It happens.
Kumenda hivi ishakuwa. Then all of a sudden your parent says, I'm no longer going to pay for your school fees. And so you have to go out and fend for a very young family. Your parent says, now that it has gone this way, you must do this. You need to now begin a family. Does it not happen?
Yes.
Is it vitu ziko ama haziko? Are we talking about real issues here?
Yes.
And so these issues, kama hujazi feel wewe mwenyewe, ziko within us. Our sisters, our brothers, our cousins have gone through all this. And so the issues we are talking about today, we may not agree, but they are happening. Yes, we bring very good children into this world, but look at it on the other side, the things that lie. Your education is terminated. At times there are schools that will not, you are in a boarding school now you have to drop out, go to a day school, where now you're able to go to school and also look after your child. Your study time becomes low because you have other responsibilities to take on. Mentally, your health, also your mental health is totally different. Because though you're thinking about yourself, your education, your child, what will happen after this? And so your needs totally change. Abiba?
Yes.
So allow me to allow Tabitha to make her presentation. And then after that, we can continue with the conversation. Tuko pamoja?
Yes.
So who can tell us what she said her name is?
Tabitha. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so at least they got it. And I think we need to tell Tabitha we have an airstrip. Si tuko nayo?
Yes.
Tuko nayo, inaitwaje?
Yarifo.
Yes. So, ngoja tu kidogo kidogo, si tuko na hotline ya governor, tutamzulisha na hiyo mambo tafanya. Let's promise her, we'll promise her maybe next time she will land at Nyarefo, then be here in 5 minutes. Ni ukweli? Aya, sawa. Tabitha, over to you.
I wanted to see the face of the gentleman who can remember my name. So that's Esther, tafadhali ufanye M-Pesa. Can you throw some M-Pesa to the person who can remember my name? It is important. Ndio nikikuja kutafuta kura Nyeri, nitakuwa na watu wa kunikampainia. I'm happy to hear that there's an airstrip. I should probably tell you a little bit about myself. I am a lawyer by profession. I started my career immediately I graduated working in a law firm. While I was working in a law firm, a lot of the things that I was doing was sale agreements, commercial treaties, and a lot of licenses and doing a lot of what you'd call business law. So in terms of managing buildings, I have managed Westgate, I have done ABC, I have done Rahimtullah Towers. But after 2012, I decided that I wanted to do something different. So I went and did my master's, but when I came back, instead of going back to the law firm where I had an already existing job, I joined civil society. I joined FIDA. For those of you who know, Federation of Women Lawyers, FIDA Kenya. Ile kikundi ya wamama yenye, for a very long time, the narrative was always that wamama wa FIDA ndio wanaharibu boma za watu. So I was part of that crew. I was not part of the crew that inaharibu boma za watu, but I was part of the women who were helping with domestic violence. I would literally get into the office in 2013 at 6 in the morning. And we had a ticketing system where wamama walikuwa wanaingia. The first person to come in, you get a ticket, you sit, you wait for a lawyer to come. It was while I was at FIDA that I experienced my first case of unsafe abortion. It was a girl from Mathare. She had been arrested by the police on Friday. And by the time they were coming to FIDA to ask for a lawyer to represent her, it was on Monday. She had been arrested in Mathare and she had been taken to Muthaiga police station that Friday. her father was a watchman. So he would not be able to see her during the day because he was asleep and he did his shifts at night. So by the time I got to that case, that was the first time that it opened up my eyes to the realities of what a law firm does not make you see. In a law firm, you meet rich people, you meet people who are corporate clients who come in suits, you meet people from 8 to 5, and your job is perfect in terms of I would get in on the dot and I would clock out and I would bill by the hour. In civil society, hakuna masaa. When you're told that there's an emergency and there's a girl who has been arrested and is taken to the chief, kwa chief na amearestiwa saa moja usiku, you do not have the luxury of saying, wacha ningoje mpaka kesho asubuhi. When we found this girl, her name was Edna. Edna was still bleeding on Monday. And it took the intervention of the court when she was walking in for the magistrate to see that this girl who had been arrested on Friday and stayed in the police station on Saturday, on Sunday, by the time she's coming before the magistrate to take plea on Monday, she was still bleeding. So the court ordered through the magistrate for her to go for something called post-abortion care. Kwa Kiswahili, tunaita post-abortion care kuoshwa. I'm sure many of us have heard this statement hapo Nyeri level 5 ama huko Karatina. I had a lot of doctors that have worked with both at Nyeri and in Karatina, where the statement is always, alienda na kaoshwa. So hiyo kuoshwa is what the police had refused for Edna to get, which is a medical emergency. Had she stayed one more day without receiving medical treatment, we would be talking of a person who had lost their kidneys, who had overbled, who had gotten an infection. Now, why am I saying this story? Because one of the things that we will talk about and the stories that I want to share with you, as Esther said, each of the stories that I'm going to share with you are personal stories. They're stories that in the life of the last 12 years that I have worked, I have encountered them directly. I have represented these clients in court. I have gone to where they live to explain to their parents. I have broken news to parents around the death of one of their girls. And it's not something that you are taught in law school. Hatufundishangwi, anyone who is a lawyer and who is in the room today knows what we are taught is how to apply the law. You are not taught things around care. You're not taught things around how to break news to a parent that they lost their daughter due to FGM or unsafe abortion, or that their child was raped and that they're afraid of telling their parent. So I wanted to do a very quick presentation, and I'm going to take very little time because I enjoy discussions more than I enjoy just talking by myself. So just to do that, I titled this presentation, Teen Pregnancies, Unsafe Abortion, and a Myriad of Other Reproductive Complexities. Again, another story that I wanted to share with you. In 2019, a young girl who used to attend school in Mombasa was constantly pregnant. And her family was not bothered by it. But the teachers in the school where she used to go noticed that the first time she was pregnant, the second time she was pregnant, and then this third time, the pregnancy was so big, such that even yani hata kuficha pale shule, she could not hide it in her uniform. But then all of 5 to 6 months of the pregnancy disappeared. When the teacher noticed that this girl had missed school, it disappeared, she alerted the authorities. When the authorities started doing their investigations, they found out that the father of the girl is the one who had been impregnating this girl between the time she was 9 years old up to the time they were now finding her. If you look at the charge sheet, and I'm hoping that you're able to see my screen, the gentleman who was charged, her father, who was charged with the offense, the offense states that on diverse dates between January 2017 and July 2019, this man, Bernard Angera Manyasi, had intentionally and unlawfully been causing his genital organs to penetrate the vagina of a child aged 14 years. What were mathematics? From 2017 to 2019, hiyo ni miaka ngapi? 2017, 2018, 2019. This child is 14 years right now. Naona wenye wanafanya na vidole, ninawaona hapo. Wenye mlisoma hii ya kufanya 1, 2, 3. It is, imagine this. This girl is 14 years now. Her father had been defiling her since 2017, okay? When she was 11. Now she's 14. What type of justice am I supposed to ask for this girl as a lawyer, right? I want you to put yourself in my shoes. He had caused this girl to be pregnant at least 3 times. And on those 3 times, he had supported and facilitated the abortion. But he mara ya mwisho, it became such that the pregnancy was so big that the teachers had noticed it. So when it all of a sudden disappeared, the teachers got involved. The same year, 2020 sasa, I was involved in a case that included a woman from Mombasa called Zainab Mwachirumbi. This case may have been, you may have seen it or you may not have seen it, of a woman who attempted to commit suicide in a police cell. The reason was that Zainab Mwachirumbi was infertile. She was sterile. But because she couldn't have the courage of telling her partner, her husband, who was a truck driver, that she couldn't get children, Zainab akafanya nini? She pretended to be pregnant, and because he's a truck driver, he's never at home, she carried on this false pregnancy for 9 months, akazaa Dolly, and immediately after, every time her husband would try and tell her, let me see the baby. Because it was during COVID time, what would she say? Utashikisha mtoto, COVID. So finally, when Zainab was arrested, it was because her neighbors and the husband became so curious and suspicious. Mtoto hatujai muona, mtoto huwa hali. Right? When Zainab was arrested, Zainab attempted to commit suicide in the police station. Again, 2020, this is just 3 years ago. A 35-year-old woman is arrested in Nyamira. And this one is arrested for charges of trying to abort a 7-month fetus and dumping it into the river. That same year, in Kitui and Machakos, we had a 24-year-old in Kitui who was arrested also, and she was reportedly 6 months, and she was arraigned in hospital. I mean, she was arraigned in the police station, but again, she had been released from hospital for receiving treatment. There was also in Machakos County a 32-year-old. Please note the age of these women and the gestational period. Gestational period ni how far along was the pregnancy. Unaona hii ni pregnancy ya 7 months. The other one is a pregnancy for 6 months. The other pregnancy was for how many months? 7 months in Nyamira. Okay, so each of these people, what you are constantly seeing is their age is very young. These are youth within the meaning of the Constitution, and then the gestational period is so high, it's so aged, right? Again, this is in Kakamega and Migori. A 16-year-old is arrested, and she's arrested for allegedly attempting to procure an unsafe abortion. But you would think that these cases zitakuwa zimeisha by now, that the interventions that we've been making and the noise we've been making and the prayers we've been praying would have worked. I have worked on, I told you my first case was in 2013 personally. In 2013, I am still having cases of women who have been arrested, and these cases have not changed. Many of these women attempt the unsafe abortions. They attempt to throw the fetuses in pit latrines. Many of them are then wanasetiwa kwa camp, kwa chief, and then what happens is that we get involved together with the police. And most of them, the nature of these cases, the most that I have handled between 2013 and now, the age keeps decreasing. In fact, right now, most of these cases I'm receiving are between 14 years and 19 years. Many of them with fetuses that are 6 to 7 months, and they are willing. When you interview these women, they are willing to do anything to have that pregnancy out. This is one of the things that perhaps I should emphasize on. But during this time, most of the times when we have gone and engaged with the church and asked the church, can you allow us, because you are the owners of the schools, the St. Mary's, the Catholic Church, can you allow us to start teaching these children about their bodies, about how to recognize an inappropriate touch, about to recognize the falsehoods that they could be given, to recognize that a teacher can be able to molest them and they should be able to say no, or they should be able to, pick up that a teacher is doing something that is wrong. The church has been totally opposed to teaching comprehensive sexuality education. Many of these, so those are cases on abortion. We are also involved in so many cases on teenage pregnancies. Many of you have seen that the latest statistics from Narok, I don't know if you saw this, between January and March 2023, there were at least 741 school-going children in Narok County. Narok peke yake, 741 that are pregnant. 332 of them are from primary school, 409 are in secondary school. Kajiado County, kule ambako ninatoka na mali hatuna airstrip bado, in one constituency, Kajiado North, we had 1,500 girls registered as teen mothers. In the KCPE results of 2021, 3 KCPE candidates in Meru, KCPE, not KCSE, KCPE, 3 candidates sat for the exams in labor, in the labor ward, 3. That is a girl who is between KCPE and Akwanga, which age? 14, 15, right? KCPE, we had 3 girls who sat for the exams in the labor ward, and then 233 of them who sat the exams while pregnant, meaning that they would have delivered at any point. Machakos had 3,964 girls impregnated in 2020 only. Meru, again, the same thing as we've said. So these are statistics that I wanted to summarize for you, because even in all this, I've not even touched on the statistics of HIV. So what is the summary, so that I then go to solutions, so that I don't look like all I'm presenting is depression, depression, depression. In addition to the Narok, Meru, and Kajiado statistics that I've given you, between January and February 2022, the police recorded at least 2,196 cases of defilement, yani gender-based violence, defilement of young girls, 2,196. Out of those cases, 98 of the girls who were recorded tested positive for HIV. When any of you who works with the National AIDS Control Council, which has now changed its name to the National Syndemic Disease Control Council, the statistics and report that they revealed in the World AIDS Day report for 2022, it shows that we have at least 34,540 new cases of HIV. Out of those, 20,000 of them have occurred amongst young girls. So 34,000 cases in total, but the cases of young girls between the age of 10 to 19 or 15 to 24, completely 20,000. What solutions have we seen from our government? Last year in Narok, the government of Narok decided that the solution was to put ambulances on standby, so that any person who starts contractions, and if they get into false labor, there's an ambulance that is put on standby as the exams kicked off in Narok. KCPE, I really want to insist, because not to justify a KCSE candidate sitting while pregnant, but KCPE. We've accepted, and our solution has become in November 2022 that we will put ambulances on standby. The Children's Act, in terms of the law, this is the newest act, the revised act, has under section 16 subarticle 4 indicated that every child has a right to age-appropriate information that affirms human dignity in human relations and promotes sexual risk avoidance. But one of the things that we're also having to see, and which is quite controversial, is that in that same section 16, if you look at section 16, part 1, subsection 1, it says that while every child has the right to the highest attainable standard of healthcare, provided that the provisions of reproductive health services to children should be subject to the express consent of a parent or guardian. Now, my first question to all of you, those who are online and those who are inside at the hotel, if you remember the first case that I showed you of the girl who had been raped by the father from 2017 to 2019, should section 16(1) apply to her, where the law says that for provision of reproductive health services of children, it must be with the express permission of their parent? When we come to counties, there have been interesting developments at county level. There are some counties, including Mombasa County, including Makueni County, that have actually started making laws recognizing that they cannot be escapists. So for instance, Mombasa Reproductive Health Act of 2017 says, and I'm hoping that you can see my screen, that we must facilitate the provision of adolescent-friendly reproductive health services. Okay? Part 2 says in the provision of reproductive health services to adolescents, parental consent is not mandatory. Are you seeing the clash between the Children's Act of 2022 and Mombasa's Reproductive Health Act? And we'll talk about what is the implication of the clash between a county and a national law. Makueni County, which passed its Maternal Newborn Child Health Act earlier than everyone else when Governor Kibwana was in charge, had a very, I don't know whether to call it funny or curious. It had a very curious law that said that you cannot provide condoms to a child without the consent of their parent. However, any other contraceptive, so if you're reading Article 25, subclause 2, it says contraceptives other than condoms may be provided to a child who has a high chance of being exposed to sexual intercourse, and it may be on request by the child and without the consent of the parent or the caregiver. So which other contraceptive other than condoms? That means that if a girl goes and requests for the injection, so long as she shows that she has a high chance of being exposed to sexual intercourse, she can get it and without the consent of the parent. But boy child, 25(1), haezi pata condoms without the consent of the parent. I find that very curious. If there's anyone here who has worked with Makueni County, I have really looked for the Hansard where they debated this law for me to understand why is it that for condoms, you must get the authority of your parent, but for any other contraceptive other than condoms, so that means the long acting methods, coil, who can get a coil? It's the girl. Who can get an injection? It's the girl. Right? So vasectomy hapa vasectomy mneza cheza nayo because it is a form of contraception other than condoms. Lastly, I wanted to share this because these are my thoughts. These are not amnesty. I must now place this burden on myself to say that the thoughts I'm sharing around, what are the thoughts that I have around solutions to FGM, menstrual hygiene, rape, teenage pregnancy, etc. What do I think we can do better as a country? Number one, information is power. Knowledge is power. I think one of the things that we have not been good at is giving accurate, timely, correct information that needs to be done, especially and disseminated to children, because of the fact that the more they know about their own bodies, the more they know about what sex is, the more we give them truthful, accurate information about busting myths. I have worked in a dreams project where the girls would tell me that they were told that if they drink Coca-Cola immediately after they have sex, they will not get pregnant. Or if they wash their private parts with Coca-Cola immediately after sex. And I realized how dangerous that was, because imagine the misinformation. I have worked with girls in Homa Bay and Kisumu who were told by their boyfriends and lovers that if it is your first time to have sexual intercourse as a virgin, you cannot get pregnant. And then the next training, they come with children, and I ask them, what happened? The myth was burst. So accurate information around some of these myths that we have heard, around some of this misinformation that we've heard around sex. Number two, I am sure many of you have heard that the judiciary has now opened 10 SGBV courts. 10. They're not enough, but it is a start. And to me, one of the things that I have been pushing the president's advisor on women's rights to do is that together with the judiciary, there must be a system where we prosecute defilement of kids fast-tracked, that those cases must not go beyond 3 months. It cannot be business as usual when it comes to that girl, that 14-year-old that I showed you the charge sheet at the beginning. There's no justice if this man will be given bail and then he'll be given availability of the court diary will be in 2 years. He'll be living his best life out here. That is a personal opinion, that we must prosecute defilement cases with the speediest. We've even attempted to say, put the file in such a color that when the magistrate sees that file, they recognize that this is a matter that should be fast-tracked. Thirdly, there is no way that the Ministry of Health can do this alone. There's no way that the Ministry of Education can do this alone. Ministry of Gender must collaborate with Ministry of Interior, must collaborate with Ministry of Health, must collaborate with Ministry of Education. Immediately a girl goes to an antenatal clinic, Ministry of Health should be notified. Ministry of Health must immediately notify the Ministry of Education that, hey, there's a young girl who has started attending antenatal clinic. Ministry of Security must then immediately be notified to then investigate how did she get pregnant. DPP must be involved, because the moment that girl goes for antenatal clinic, it should trigger Ministry of Education, it should trigger Ministry of Security, it should trigger Ministry of Gender. We should start even looking for how are we now reintegrating her immediately she has the child. And lastly, for me, one of the things that I really am passionate about, that survivors must have access to safe abortion. The other thing that I have struggled with for a very long time is that police officers have always insisted to survivors of GBV that keep the child because the DNA will be evidence in court. I can assure you as a lawyer, I can assure you as somebody who sits in 3 technical working groups that work on gender-based violence here in Kenya, there is no law that requires you to keep that pregnancy so that we can use that as the DNA and evidence that you were raped. You do not need evidence of a pregnancy to prove that you were raped. Because after that, mtoto tutamtupa kwa dustbin. So for me, I have always advocated and said, the law allows for safe termination of pregnancies within the first 3 months of rape survivors. Unfortunately, we have a culture of silence. We have a culture of shame and stigmatizing the survivor of rape. And therefore, a lot of times, they do not even tell us when they have been raped. We only discover 3 months or 6 months when the pregnancy starts showing. And then that's when a 14-year-old will say, it's Baba who has been doing this. Esther, I want to end it here. And I say that I have not done enough justice to the other issues. I've not even spoken about FGM. I've not even spoken about the issues of sex for money and changing and pads, and even issues to do with well beyond rape and safe abortion and teenage pregnancies. But because of time, and I'm recognizing that, you know, this is not a conference where you're staying in, I would want us to end there, not to end, but to open it up. Hii ni kikao sasa. Ask me all the questions around the experiences I have. I have trained more than 900 police officers at Kiganjo. Hapo chini tu. I used to literally live in Kiganjo with those police officers, because after that first case in FIDA, I realized the importance of training police officers on empathy, on being human, on finding it in their hearts to take that girl to hospital before they even take her before the courts. So I'd be more than happy to share my own lived experiences around these issues, to share what the law says, where there's a law, and to share also just solutions, because I am also very keen on solution-oriented kikaos. Sio tukuje tupige kelele alafu tuseme serikali twende kesho maandamano, then there's no result. For me, is that if there's any solution that can come from this, I'm very open to it. Back to you in studio, Esther.
Thank you so much, Tabitha. Let's give a round of applause to Tabitha. Yeah, Tabitha, we celebrate you and thank you for the wonderful lessons that you've shared with us. And that was great. What do you think about
it? Someone who has a reflection they'd like to add.
Amaya,
what's the
trend or a new
or
trend
a new
that has emerged and you'd like to share with us? Anyone?
Anyone?
I
I welcome
anyone who has a lived experience. Anyone?
Anyone?
Anyone with the
Anyone
lived
with the lived
experience of women?
Of women?
From our ladies?
From our ladies?
Yes.
Yes.
You'd like to share something?
You'd like to share something?
Thank you.
Thank you. The floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone.
Okay, good evening.
Okay, good evening.
So
Philip Momani.
So
I could like to add and also ask a few questions.
So
on the first thing, I have an experience about
there's
a lady who was working at a construction site. She had 2 children and she was HIV positive. So she met a man at the site who was working as a foreman, and after like 2 months of knowing each other, they had a sexual relationship, and later, after something like 6 months, they decided to move in. So after something like now a year of living together, the husband was someone who was working at the construction, so he was coming home later, and so he was not someone mwenye alikuwa kwa nyumba all the time. But the other day he was off. He just came Nyeri, and upon ile ukiwa off unaangalia vitu kwa nyumba, he found out some drugs. After kupata the drugs, akaziangalia na akaona ni kama hizi ndio naonanga watu wa HIV wakisema. So he later took a picture of the drugs and took to someone who works at a chemist. So the person told him, yeah, these are ARVs.
So the husband went home. He did not confront the wife. He just took his things and left.
Confront the wife, his things and left.
Later,
but that feeling, you're feeling your betrayal and everything else, he came back. And unfortunately, the day he came back, he found the wife now. She was cooking mandazi using a stove. He took that hiyo karai ya mafuta akamwagia hiyo mafuta moto, plus he took now the stove akamrushia pia. She suffered burns and we received her at ICU Nyeri, but unfortunately she died.
Then the
second case,
it's good that
you have said that you have worked at Kiganjo. The second case I was at Kiganjo Health Center. I think you know it. There was a young girl came to the consultation room. She was accompanied with the grandmother. The girl was about 14 years. So the complaint was that the girl told the grandmother that she feels pain while urinating. So as obvious, what we do is we do a test to find if she has any UTI. But I had a question. This is a young girl, and for that age, UTI is something not common. So I requested the grandmother to step out, and I decided to do an examination. Upon doing an examination on genitals, I found out that there were some fresh, how can I call them, cuts, or like kuna kitu ilikuwa inatry kupenyezwa hapo. So from there I decided now to call one of my colleagues who is senior, a lady, so that now we started talking with this young girl. We talked with her, but she was denying everything. So after some time, the girl decided to say that it was a cousin while they were playing, who wanted, maybe now let me say, to rape her. But now when we called the grandmother and asked the grandmother the age of that boy, he said that the boy was 10 years. And this girl, so there were some questions there. Because even when we saw the photo of the boy was so young, and the girl, so there was some questions. So we later part the girl for further guidance and everything else. Now the next one is about a question on the contraceptives. You have asked if is it good for us to start the young girls and the young boys on contraceptives. Okay, this one I want us to I want to talk about the hormonal contraceptives, basically the hormonal contraceptives. The hormonal contraceptives, they work this way. Let me give you a simplest example how they work. What they do is that they release an hormone in the body that is either progesterone or estrogen hormone. Ideally, normally, the body ikona progesterone na estrogen kwa mwili. But when you start taking the contraceptives, these pills give you those hormones. What the body does, it stops producing those hormones. But now, what happens is when you take them for long, the body kind of forgets that now there is no need for me doing this because there's someone who is doing this. So if we start giving these girls, let's say 13 years or 14 years, this hormonal contraceptive, and maybe she wants to conceive at 26 years, she could have taken the contraceptive for around 13 years. And 13 years is a long time, in that the body may have forgotten to produce now the hormone when one wants to conceive. That's why when you take for the ladies who have maybe used hormonal contraceptive, you are told that when maybe you take that injectable, is that when you want now to get the baby, it might take some time for you to be pregnant. But what will happen for the young girl who has taken maybe this contraceptive for 13 years? Now, they tend to bring an early infertility, not an early infertility, but an early menopause for these young girls. So if, for example, someone wants to conceive at 26 years, it may be a challenge. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Tabitha,
I hope
I hope you're still on.
From what I picked from him is maybe you can
shed light on
the
the
matters relating to health status disclosure for spouses, health status disclosure for spouses, And also
and also
disclosure
disclosure of relatives who how can I put
for
offenders or
abusers.
abusers.
And
And
the
the
last one,
last one, maybe you can also reinforce on
just what he
just
said.
what he
I
said.
think he's talked about more from a very
medical
and I loved it.
point.
So
Yeah,
I say
that
was quite informative and I loved it.
and I
And I
would say
Amnesty is
amnesty
also the hope of
is also the
healthcare
hope
workers.
of healthcare
So
workers.
feel at home
So feel at
and
home
feel where you
and
belong.
feel where you belong.
Na karibu
Na
nyumbani.
karibu
Sawa, sawa.
nyumbani. Sawa,
So
sawa.
Tabitha,
So
over to you.
Tabitha, over to you. You can shed light on the thing.
Before Tabitha goes on, I hope Tabitha you can hear me. Just to add on something that he's mentioned around the boy that was younger than the girl, and for me the question is, what does the law say when, should I call it a rape case between people who are below 18 years of age, and when the girl is relatively older than the boy. So maybe do we have like a law around it? So that's my question.
The last one
was something that you forgot. Maybe you can shed light on.
Tell us why
Kenya and
specifically
specifically Kenya has not yet
to have
the for example sex offenders
history where you
if you're a sex offender,
your list is there, well circulated,
and you
never
never get to get another opportunity
like in different
like
other
in
states,
different other states, because
basically you did something
that was against the law of the country. Thank you.
Esther, we have to acknowledge, and I think it's also for Billy and whoever else is in the room, we have the people who are online have really been receiving an echo. So we've been hearing you twice. Luckily, hii masikio yangu mbili imewasikia perfectly, but you can see in the charts, there's a lot of people who are telling you that we are really struggling to hear you. Esther, I'm going to start backwards with you. Last week, the judiciary, 2 weeks ago, the judiciary actually launched the sexual offenders list. So now we have it. This is, for the longest time, what had been happening was that the sexual offenders list was a physical list, and many of us had to go to the High Court to access it physically. What has now happened is that 2 weeks ago, courtesy of Martha Koome, Chief Justice Martha Koome, the judiciary launched the database of sexual offenders online. What I'm going to do is that I'm actually going to ask the person in charge of that to give me the link so that I send it to you so that mwende muka scrutinize na muone if is there someone who is on that list, that a name that strikes you. So Esther, that has actually been done. So this should be something that comforts you. What is the criteria that has been used by the judiciary? It has to be someone who has already been convicted. So please note that if you have a case that is ongoing in court, you are not yet on the list. Why? Because you've not yet been convicted. So that list is for only the people who have been convicted. And the case that we've always made through Lady Justice Njoki Ndung'u is that if you have an appeal, so for instance, you've been convicted at High Court, if you appeal your conviction, your name stays on that until your appeal has been determined. So atukutoi kwa hiyo list until the appeal has been determined. So Esther, just to confirm that that is already in action. The second thing is, let me now go back to the experience of the construction worker that Philip talked about, who was HIV positive. I mean, the partner who was HIV positive, and then the man probably got the DTG drugs, the ARVs, and then came back and burnt the woman. Quick fun fact, and now I'm speaking, and I think Philip, because you have more medic information than me, I'm sure you've all ever heard of something called U is equal to U. When someone is taking their ARVs, their viral load is most likely to be very low, to a point where they are undetectable. So in fact, if I was to have advised that man, when he discovered the ARVs, he should have first of all have gone to test for HIV without assuming that he had contracted HIV, because his partner, who was taking the ARVs, was actually protecting him, because U is equal to U, untransmissible if you are undetectable, right? A person who has consistently been taking their ARVs, when they test for HIV, it actually shows negative. Not to mean that they all of a sudden are cured, but because they have suppressed their virus, their viral load is nil. And that, for me, is an important piece of information that many of us don't have. So to my knowledge, that is one thing that perhaps should be more promoted around. Ukipatana na mtu ambaye anachukua their ARVs, you should be very happy and very proud. That person most likely has an undetectable viral load. The second thing, and this one is where now a lot of noise has been made, is that the law does not mandate anyone to specifically share their information around their HIV status. It is not a crime for you to carry your HIV, because the law, under privacy laws, under the HIV Prevention and Control Act, allows for someone's information to be kept private. It is yours to tell your partner, but you cannot be compelled. I cannot go to court and compel Esther, unless for reasons such as adoption, blood transfusion, that information would be so totally necessary for something that needs to happen to me. But when you are in a sexual relationship, the law has bestowed the duty upon you, you who is going out with this babe, to be the one to test yourself, to be the one to encourage her to go to the VCT with you, but there's no criminal liability for her not sharing her HIV status with that man. That is the law. Please go and read. There's a case that was that challenged Section 24 of the HIV Prevention and Control Act about 10 years ago. It is called, this was the case that was by AIDS Law Project versus the Attorney General. And the court was very clear. In terms of privacy, we do not mandate it upon anyone to share their HIV status. That is controversial, because there are people who've said, na watu wanafanya deliberate transmission of HIV huku nje. It has been argued that for purposes of privacy, for purposes of not promoting stigma and discrimination, a person's HIV status is none of your business, right? So the only time that you can be prosecuted for deliberate transmission of HIV is in sexual offenses. That distinction needs to be made. If there's a case that we had of a 3-year-old who was raped and the child turned positive, in that instance, the Sexual Offences Act, rather than the HIV Prevention and Control Act, is what is used to determine and to prosecute. So for sexual offenses, rape, defilement, you can be prosecuted for what? For deliberate transmission of HIV. But for two consenting adults, not adolescents, two consenting adults, the law does not get in, and the law does not interfere. So that's information, food for thought. Philip, when it comes to the child who had a UTI, there are certain steps that we are encouraged in law to take. So for instance, if the information was not forthcoming by the girl, yet you as a medic noted possibility of penetration, the next time I would strongly recommend that you involve at least a law officer. Either report this as a matter, because sometimes it could be that there's fear, or please get a counselor. The experience that we have a lot of times is that you involve a counselor so that this information can be forthcoming, especially where the child or the minor is not forthcoming with information. Now, there's some distorted information, or rather what I got from the echoes is that the girl is what, 14? And the boy was 10, the alleged cousin. Is that the accurate position, Philip? So in that instance, these are two minors. But do you know what the penal code says about male, the age of carnal knowledge? Does anyone know? Kuna kitu inaitwa age of carnal knowledge in Kenya. Mnaijua? So there's a criminal capability. So the following are important ages for boy child. Boy child nataka unisikilize. 8 years, 12 years. Those are important ages. I can see someone in the chat. Exactly. Right? So 8 years for criminal liability. The age within which you can be prosecuted. Ukiua mtu, if you're 8 years and above, criminal liability in the penal code starts at 8 years. For boys and men, or rather boys, the age of 12 years is the age of what? Carnal knowledge. Yani, what is the English, the Kiswahili translation of carnal knowledge? Yani ni ile age, and I am going to ask those who are better in Kiswahili to help me here. The age within which you can be prosecuted as a boy for engaging in sexual activity. However, I want to note something that the courts have been doing, Esther and Philip. The courts have been very hesitant of late, including Justice Helen Omondi, who has said, when two young people are experimenting in the heat of, there's no love, in the heat of adolescence and hormones, it becomes extremely difficult for us to find fault in either of them. So if you Google Justice Helen Omondi, you will see that she has actually awarded a boy 200, and I think it was 2.5 million. She awarded a boy child 200, either it's 250,000 or 2.5 million. There's a zero somewhere, I'm confusing. Very recently, where she said it is unfair for us to put the burden on one child when it is a case of two children experimenting. In South Africa, there's a case called the Teddy Bear Clinic case. I'm going to put all this in the chat so that you can go and read more about it, where the courts in South Africa, the Constitutional Court in South Africa said, where two adolescents are experimenting, we cannot hold them criminally liable. Notably in Kenya, however, this is still the case. And what is assumed is that there's a defilement that has happened. Boy child is criminally liable, he's prosecuted, and then the girl is deemed to be in need of care and protection. Those are the hard issues. When I said that today we are going to discuss hard issues, those are the hard issues that the courts are dealing with right now. That the Sexual Offences Act does not anticipate instances of what they call the Romeo and Juliet. Young people who are experimenting, and then in the course of experimentation, a parent finds them, and then they assume that the girl is the one who was taken advantage of. So just to say, we don't have a specific, I think, was it Billy, someone who asked this around how the cases are. Most of the instances, the lower courts, the magistrates' courts, it's the girl who is the witness and the boy who is the accused. And the boy will be sent to Boston institutions, ile tulikuwa tunaita approved schools, kuna moja ilikuwa hapo Nyeri, and then the girl will be deemed in need of care and protection. I don't personally agree with that method. And right now, it's a quagmire that has really been difficult for a lot of the courts. And they have acknowledged it, and they have said, how is it fair that we prosecute the boy and we do not prosecute the girl? So that's the patterns that we are seeing in court, and they're the unfortunate patterns. And until the penal code gives us a rationale of why 12 was the age that was, I mean, remember that we inherited the penal code from the British people. So I don't know what rationale they used to determine that at the age of 12, you're capable of an erection, and therefore you're capable of being criminally liable for carnal knowledge. The last thing was around contraceptives. Now, two things. Number one, Philip, from my end, we keep assuming that contraceptives should be administered only to the girl. I want to challenge you as a medic. Boy child pia lazima play role yake kwa hii contraception discussion. And I think we have forgotten that contraception is two-way. So if your thesis, Philip, is that a girl who gets hormonal contraceptive from 13 up to 26 will have difficulties conceiving, Can we please start having conversations around also boy child and the role of boy child in using contraception? So that if we are saying that it will harm the girl, why can that role also not be placed on the boy child? As you've seen in Makueni, they decided that boy child cannot have access to condoms. But it is always the duty and burden. We've placed this burden on girls, that they're the ones to take contraception. They're the ones to take the pills. Can we have conversations around vasectomy? Yet we have said that vasectomy is reversible. See, to test, tuone, right? So someone in the chat says, exactly, I think this is Michelle in the chat saying, exactly, the burden should not fully be placed on the girl on contraceptive issues. So mini nataka to test, I think there's a bigger conversation, Philip, to be held around what role we've placed on only one sex when it comes to protection and contraception and childbearing and the role that that plays. I'm really hoping that I've at least answered bits and pieces of the questions that I had around HIV transmission, around carnal knowledge of boys, around 2 minors experimenting in sex, around hormonal contraceptives and the side effects of that. Esther, back in studio, or is it back to you in studio?
Right. Please confirm. Thank you. Now, hiyo conversation iko aje? Iko heated. Wanaume tukiwapea pili mmeze, mtakumbuka? Mtakumbuka ama mtatuachilia? Pili, no, for example, no, I'm just imagining, jioni, each and every evening, you're supposed to take e-pill. Mtakumbuka ama mtasahau? Mtakumbuka ama mtasahau? Billy here says tutawakumbusha. But anyway, it's a good conversation that we actually supposed to have, and wonderful conversation. I want to take the final round of questions. Maybe this reminds me, there was a time I was talking to a teenager, you know, we were told, unakunywa coco conk ama majani conk, and then you won't get pregnant. These myths zinatembeaga tu hivyo. So you can imagine conk, majani, tea leaves. Conk, what? Cocoa. Ati ndio unafaa mtu akunywe ndio asipate. The myths are too many. I want to invite him. And any other person? Thank you. Hey, the men, Tabitha, the men here wamejikakamua. Are we not having a good conversation? What do you think of Tabitha? She's a whole powerhouse, full of knowledge on matters of health, legal. What do you think? So we're having a lot of learning. Are we not learning? Okay, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is So one of the things I want to talk about is it's what we call the teen prostitution. I didn't know if you know something like there is something like that, teen prostitution, and it's most likely, but it's more likely being done in those constituencies or those counties that have quick money. And I'll name a few. One of the constituencies is Moya East and Moya West, where we have a lot of rice. The other constituency is Mbere South, where we have a lot of Muguka. Then we have Isiolo also. And I'll talk about Olmagogo. I don't know if you have been there. So for me, I really found it, I don't know how to put it, but amnesty kwa ground, #amnesty kwa ground, I think tuiko online tu na ni watu wenye wako na simu peke yake. But if you go to such counties kama hizi Mbere, Mwea, and Olmagogo, which is in Kirinyaga, which is in Nyandarua, kwa sababu hiyo quick money yenye customers wanapata, they lure these young girls or even young boys to get this quick cash. Sasa sijui hiyo, na sababu nataka kusimama, sijui nataka kusimama kiti gani, kwa sababu hizo ni kaunti kama 3 nimemention. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Isaac, you're picking the question at the back. Please tell us your name, alafu you tell us background. We are learning. People here are in different businesses.
Yeah. All right. My name is Ambrose. A medical psychologist and also a medical social worker. And I just wanted to emphasize much on the issue of the HIV tribunal, because that is where most of the time, like, we're having a lot of cases like people like stigma and discrimination, but people don't know where to report. In fact, I wanted people to let people know that in Nyeri County, we have HIV tribunal here at the National Endemic Diseases Control Council. I'm saying that with a lot of confidence because I work for Maisha Youth. And the other thing is about, I just wanted the data maybe from in 2022, we had 1898 of teenage pregnancies in Nyeri County. That is 10 to 17 years. So, and 2022, like January to May, we have 720. So I think a lot needs to be done for us to eliminate or to reduce the number of teenage pregnancies in Nyeri County. The other thing is about U equals to U. There's a lot of misinformation about U equals to U. Many people are saying like it's a method or it's a technique which is being used by some people to transmit HIV intentionally. So I think we need a lot of information, correct information, especially to our girls, so that they can know the truth about what is happening out there about SGBV, HIV, and teenage pregnancies. I am an activist of SRH. So those are the things that we've been going through. And for Nyeri County, I think drug and substance abuse and dysfunctionality of families is a key contributing factor to teenage pregnancies and so on. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ambrose. Tabitha, I think we are done with the, oh, there's someone else. Okay. My apologies.
Good evening. My name is John. I'm a psychologist. I wanted just to discuss about something that is happening in our communities, about the SGBV issues, about the teenage pregnancies, because unafuatilia kesi ya teenage pregnancy, but immediately umefuata that case inagonga mwamba, because in the community we have courts known as Kagaru courts, in quotes. These Kagaru courts, unapata, for example, talk about a patient, a girl who was 14 years old, was raped by a neighbor. Kwa facility, kwa medical attention, but sasa tukifuatilia the story, baba ashaona na mwenye relate mtoto na akapewa pesa. So mama akijaribu kufuatilia story anaonga mwamba, njoo baba alishapewa pesa.
Yes, sir.
So, tunapata this Kagaru courts, sisi tunafanya tuseme labda wenye wako wanafanya kazi yao, wenye wako medical wanafanya kazi yao, but ukirudi kwa community, these people I think wako na so much literacy ama hawajui the adverse effects of that, kupea hiyo pesa na hiyo case inaisha. So those are some of the issues that we are facing in the community, zenye zinaweza to lead even to other effects later in life. Juu huyu mtu hata kurelease, kesho yake mtu ataripu nani mwingine. You never know, my daughter ama kweli. So we must ensure that even as we play a role in this community with them much on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. Wow. I have to say you're the perfect participants for this conversation. It's been so enriching. And Tabitha, I hope you've gotten the 3 responses from Ambrose, from John, and also from Isaac. So I leave you to give your response to this.
Yeah. So kwa sababu mimi ni feminist, Esther, hakuna demu yote tu ako na swali kwangu. Like for real, boy child, I will address you, but I want us not to lock out any woman, lady, girl who has a question to me. I will spare 2 extra minutes if there's anyone who has a question, from a female who has a question. Kama hakuna, tutakuwa tumewapea chance. Is there any?
So good evening, everyone. So I'm June Trevor. I'm still a continuing medical student. I'm doing pharmacy. So personally, have never heard of this NGO. It's my first time. So I was asking, are you guys planning to work with the health sector and the government, maybe to create awareness? You know, personally, I think it's good maybe to create awareness, not only online, because especially rural areas, those people, they like wanna lack information sana. So I think exposure is very important. So maybe you mnaweza work na the health sector and the government, muone venye mnaweza create the awareness, maybe to reduce hizo number of pregnancies. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other girl? Hai. Hii urembo yote jameni, na hakuna swali. Aya, two from you two. You can't be facing me and you just don't have even a comment. Shoot your shot. Ni
Esther,
short ama ni short
hata kama
yo?
ni kusalimiana
Shoot
tu,
your shot.
wachukue tu
There you
mic
go.
wanisalimie.
Thank you.
Let me just give a comment from what Tabitha have told us. Sorry, I'm Ruth, a social worker, and also a continuing student in the Nyeri National Polytechnic. I want to say, Tabitha, you have really informed us, because I have a friend who had the, what did you call it? The kuoshwa. But if we had that information, we could really go through the process of going to the police, reporting the case, and my friend couldn't have had the problem that she had. Also, she couldn't have had the discrimination and even the stigmatization from our school. And thank you for informing us.
Wonderful. The last one? There you go. All.
Good evening. My name is Paul Gatito, advocate. My issue is about there's an increase in the sodomization of boys, especially in Kenya sub-county. My question would be, how would we stimulate community conversations to discuss on how to deal with stigma and how to report these issues and the referral pathway to the communities? Because some of these issues, people know about how to report issues to do with the girl child. What about the boy child? How do we stimulate these conversations so that the boys are able to communicate and share on issues affecting them? Yes, thank you.
Over to you, Tabitha.
Thanks for that. Thank you for all these questions. I'm going to try to be very brief. One, because I'm acknowledging that unless Amnesty International is housing all of you, ni saa moja, inaelekea saa moja na nusu, and I want you to get home safe. Paul's question around sodomy. The annual crime police statistics record sodomy. The saddest reality about that data is that when we see the data, if you go and Google the data of the annual crime police report, there has never been more than 150 cases that have been recorded in police stations nationwide. Total number, haijawahi pita 150 any year. For rape, it's usually around 2,000. For defilement, it's around 4,000. But for sodomy, haijawahi pita 150. You have to ask yourself, are these cases happening? Yes, they're happening. Why are they not being reported to the police? And as you've said rightly, Paul, we've got to create a community awareness around, please do not shy away when you've been sodomized. We've got to train our police officers not to ridicule men who come to report sodomy. We've got to train our health workers on what should be the immediate things to do. Because equally, I don't think we have enough of this. What we have is a society that does not recognize violation of a man to a point where it happens, either we will call each other and ridicule this person or say you're not man enough. So Paul, what I would say is that there are at least 4 sets of interventions that should be made. What we have not seen is enough emphasis of what should happen, especially community sensitization. And what we've seen is increasing a lot of stigma. So mwanaume anasema afadhali ninyamazie kuliko nifanye nini, ni report kwa polisi. So I can confidently say that the numbers that we see in the annual crime police report, 110, 115, I don't think it's an accurate representation of the true figures of what's happening kwa ground. But because of that stigma, that mwanaume haezi repiwa, mwanaume haezi sodomaiziwa, we never discuss these things. So I leave it up to you to do a lot of community sensitization. But for the medics equally who are in the room, and I'm very happy that we have so many medics today, what is your hospital's standard operating procedure for sodomy? Because equally, what we have seen is people don't know what to do with the tears. People don't know how to do counseling for sodomy. We've focused so much on defilement and rape that many of us have no clue what should be done in terms of even evidence collection. For anyone who has seen the P3 form and the PRC form, please look at the PRC form. The PRC form, in fact, makes assumptions. Have I lost you? My screen shows welcome to Kikao. Matthias, Billy, have I lost the team?
You're still on.
You can hear you.
Okay. So just to summarize, I think this is kufunga curtains, so that we go home. Just to say that for that, please, 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 I think if you look at the PRC form, that is the post-rape care form, it also does not anticipate sodomy. It is very much focused on rape and defilement for the female. There's a question around, I think June made a statement around how are we intending to work with the health sector. Please note, June, that there's already a lot of intentionality and ongoing work working with the health sector. And there are so many challenges, whether it is from NHIF, whether it is from government, whether it is on government prioritizations, but there is a lot of intentionality around working with the government and working with, the collaboration between medical students, medics, the health sector and government. There was a question by Isaac around prostitution and quick money in certain areas. I do not have immediate answers for this. It's just to reaffirm that this is something I personally saw when I was in Eldoret as a student. During harvesting season, there would be a migration of certain tourists who would come in, help the farmers and relieve them of their money, and then after that transit to another county. But I don't really have immediate solutions that I can give to that, because unless we start, offering jobs, and unless we do not believe in the ability of women to make decisions for themselves around sex work, that there's a deeper conversation around that. So I would only say that, yes, I have seen it. You've added more towns to the list, because for me, the only places that I knew was Kericho and Eldoret, because that's where I schooled. And we used to have, during harvesting season, there would be an influx of tourists who would frequent the county, and then after that, they would disappear. So I now have Mbere, is it Isiolo and Nyandarua? But that's a conversation that I think we need to have around what are the solutions? Is it, what triggers this prostitution and this quick money, right? What are the root causes? Because I don't think we've ever addressed the root causes of this. So I think there should be another Kikao for this. And if there's room, Esther, please have that discussion with Isaac after we are done with this. There was, Ambrose, I'm so happy to know that there's a Maisha youth in the room. I have been an advocate and I have worked with National AIDS Control Council and the HIV Tribunal for 5 years. So I'm so happy to know that there's somebody else who knows much more about HIV in the room. And I'm going to task you, Ambrose, please, 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 Watu, can you organize yourselves? I'm more than happy to provide and facilitate for you to come and even have those busting of myths around HIV. The last training that we did around HIV, the first question we asked, and maybe let me ask this in the room, how many of you would hire a nanny who is HIV positive to look after your 2-month-old baby? Matthias, Billy, I can't see the room. It's frozen on my end. So I'm not sure whether there are any responses or I'm still on. Marigoretti is on.
We can get you live and clear, Tabitha.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't see the room. I can only see the people who are online, but I can't see, for some reason, the video has disappeared.
Yeah, experiencing a glitch in the conference room, but it's being resolved. Okay. You can just proceed. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, the point is, Ambrose, please, you have a responsibility as a Maisha youth to make sure that the information on you is equal to you is dropped to everybody else. Everyone who is in this room has a responsibility. You have a responsibility to teach them on the HIV tribunal and the role of the tribunal. No, usipofanya hivyo mimi na kusema kule kwa Maisha Youth Chair. Alafu, lastly, I think there was a question from John around kangaroo courts. Esther, immediately after this, I'm sending a directive that was issued by the Office of the DPP to you. Please circulate it to this group. The Office of the, thank you so much, Marigoretti, for acknowledging that you would hire someone who is HIV positive. Up to today, more than 20 years after the fight for HIV, let me emphasize this, we still have stigma. We still have people who say, I cannot hire a nanny who is HIV positive. Why? Some of them, the myths that I've had is, atanyonyesha mtoto wangu. So, Ambrose, kazi kwako to really debunk how is HIV transmitted. What does ARV, when you're taking ARVs, what does it mean? How many bucket loads of saliva would I need to transmit HIV? Because some people say, oh, I can't kiss that person because you never know, they might be HIV positive. I really need you to debunk those myths around, you know, a kiss. Can you transmit HIV through mwah, mwah, mwah? Just a simple kiss, right? Quantities, how much saliva would you need to transmit HIV, right? And what to do in case you do get exposed. For the people who have said, June, I think you've said you're a medical student in training. What happens when you are in theater and you expose yourself? What do the national guidelines say around transmission of HIV, and what should you do immediately as a medic who is in theater and who gets a cut or who gets exposed, right? You need to know these things. Now, the last one was on kangaroo courts, and I've said that there's a directive by the Office of the DPP that was issued to say any person, John, who negotiates out of court on sexual offenses will be prosecuted. You do not negotiate rice, beans, airtime, cooking oil when it comes to SGBV. And the DPP has issued a directive to chiefs, to police officers, to say any person who is found negotiating out of court on GBV matters will be criminally held responsible. I'm really hoping that between June, Ruth, Paul, who talked about sodomy, Isaac, Ambrose, and John, I have tried to summarize all this so that I'm leaving you 3 minutes before 7:30. Ndio kama kuna matatu zinahitaji kuchukuliwa, please be safe. And I'm more than happy to, again, come back again to Nyeri physically for us to have these more meaningful conversations. But for now, please indulge me and allow me to release you because I feel like it is also partly my responsibility to ensure your safety. So Esther, over to you. I'm happy for people to do the physical Kikao, but from my end, I really want them to feel that they can go home now.
Thank you, Tabitha. I know there's one more question. Okay, I know there's one more question of how medics can work with Amnesty, and someone else asked, where has Amnesty been there for all this time? And all those questions I'm going to answer, and any other question that you're going to ask here, my colleague Billy and Matthias, we are going to answer all of us together. So this is the moment that I would like to talk to you about Amnesty International Kenya. So Amnesty International Kenya has been there for long. However, the country organization that is based in Kenya and was governed from Kenya has been in Kenya for the past 11 years, right? So last year, the Amnesty International Kenya got to be fully a section. A section means that its activities is in Kenya and it's governed in Kenya and it has a Kenyan board. Kumaanisha kila mtu wa Amnesty staff board wote wametoka wapi? Hapa Kenya. And that it is fully registered and it complies to the rules of the NGO board. Si mnawajua NGO board ni kina nani? The body that governs all the NGOs in Kenya. Are we together? So, number one, I want to begin by answering that question. How does Amnesty work with medics? Number one, Amnesty has a program on health and inequalities and discrimination. So inequalities and discrimination, that is where matters of health are discussed. The last time, like recently, Amnesty launched a report in regards to the new guidelines and the new laws that are going to govern NHIF. Sawa. Because there were clauses that were not good, others were quite controversial, and so Amnesty took their time to allow their members give feedback through them, and through that they launched a report. Tuko pamoja? Are we together? Amnesty is a membership organization, and so membership, kuna 3 categories of membership. There is category 1 that is usually called justice. You pay 2,000 bob. There is category 2 that you pay 1,000 bob, and there is category 3 where you pay 200 bob. Usually, the last category where you pay 200 bob, we leave that for high school students. So Amnesty, nataka kuenda polepole, kuna kitu ingine wanaitaga COC, Circles of Conscience. So Circles of Conscience, unapataga at times it's in universities and also within the secondary schools. And so when it's within the secondary schools, the students within that secondary school are allowed to join category 3 of paying 200 bob per year for membership. Tuko pamoja? It is good when your students, when the young students, when they're in secondary school, at a primary ni vizuri. Because at primary school, what Amnesty does is that in our teach mambo inaitwa rights, writing for rights. They can be able to write essays, they can be able to write different documents to demand, let me say, different things. More so, zile nyingi ni essays to demand for their rights. Sawa sawa. Because for them, their basic rights are rights to education, rights to good health, right for what? So they can be able to write essays to say that our compositions that we are demanding for these rights. So for secondary school, that is where you get membership, and you get the membership for 2000. When you learn your rights when you're so young, by the time you're over 18, you're a citizen of Kenya. Nobody can ever dare violate your rights. Ukweli ama si ukweli? Look at the knowledge you have right now. What if you had the knowledge you had when you were 18 years, below 18 years? You can agree with me, you'd be a very different person if all that you knew today, you knew it before you got to 18 years. You knew that you had the right to good health, education, shelter, have the right to access to medical care. So that improves your knowledge when you get also to 20 years. Nobody will just come and violate your rights. You know that the police are not supposed to do this to me. You know that nobody can be able to rape me. You know the procedures of how to go about when you've gone through rape or even sodomy. And so all these things, we put them together and help you understand, be a better human rights defender. On the other side, all the professions here, they fit at Amnesty. The medical professions, they fit at Amnesty because our work also on discrimination also involves health. Health ni mimi, I'm sick, but also the health allocations that are there, the insurance covers that are there, the services that are there. You see, other people, also the other videos that were circulating of people who've gone to medical public facilities and they were denied access to services, or access to services was delayed. So such conversations are where now Amnesty comes in to let you understand, to give you power to be able to ask the correct questions. I'm saying this because at the board, we have actually, I would say we have 2 medics. So matters of health, ziko ndani, katikati at Amnesty. One of them is Dr. Kigondu, the president of Kenya Medical Association. Are we together? The other one is Dr. Wairimu, who has been a practicing nurse but is now in advocacy. So matters of health, they fit hapo ndani. Matters of also any other matter, I'd give you an example that even people like people who are in different fields, human rights defenders, people with lived experiences from where they are, people championing for housing rights, they're within Amnesty. People championing for budget rights, they're within Amnesty. People championing for matters of finance, they're within Amnesty. Psychologists, medics, auditors, they're within Amnesty. So because it is at the point where you discover that you cannot just work in isolation. Human rights are everywhere. And it is upon you, and human rights are about access to justice. So in each and every career, there is that part where your career means access to justice. I don't know what kind of different other careers you are in, but I just want to assure you that Amnesty is the membership organization where different careers, they fit in. So you ask yourself, I'm in this industry, how best can I be able to fit within the conversations at Amnesty? You having the knowledge on human rights and how you can access justice, how you can be able to call out discrimination, that is enough. Because no one in your family will ever go through that without you calling it out. And you can imagine all the time when people say serikali saidia, ama when you see an injustice and someone just slept on it, and you're like, wow, if I was there 2 years ago, if I had the knowledge I had now, this is the action I'd have taken. So being on board, regardless of your membership category, your membership category yenye nimesema hata ni ya 200, even you can join the category of 200. So we don't have like mandatorily, this is where it should be. But we encourage people to either pick their 1,000 or the 2,000. That is the category, the other two categories besides the one that the secondary school students subscribe to. So each and every of our careers, my career as a human rights defender fits at Amnesty and sits at Amnesty. People with diverse gender, sexual orientation, they all come at Amnesty because this is who had to discriminate. Are we together? Nobody is discriminated on matters of race, gender, their sexuality. No, it is the home where everything meets and everyone is welcome. Are we together? So Amnesty, this is the structure of it. Membership, they're the base of it. From membership is you and me. We make up the membership of Amnesty. Then from there, the Amnesty, which is where we're at membership at Amnesty ndio kusema kila kitu. Then we get to the staff members. So that is where the secretariat usually is. And finally, we have the governing council of Amnesty, which is called the board. So each and every year, the assembly annual delegates conference is held by Amnesty. Inakujagwa na kina nani? Members of the COC. COC ya Nyeri, it exists. It's in the pipeline of being, how can I put it? Of being fully established and launched. So I'm working very hard to ensure that they come to the ADC in September 29th and 30th. So it would be very important. So last year, the first ever ADC happened, and 19 counties, 19 counties were represented. So we have people coming from Bomet, not one person. POC si mtu mmoja na si ya mtu. It's that collective grouping of people whom you've come together and said that we are of, in our right state of mind, we want to join the circles of conscience, where we are saying this is what we believe in and this is what our conscience is telling us. And so it is my prayer and my hope and working towards that Nyeri County Circle of Conscience will be represented at the annual delegates conference this year, to be held in end of September. So last year they were from other counties, as Tana River, Kinanani. So circles of conscience, hazijafika zote 47 in all the 47 counties. So usishangae why I'm saying they were there 19. No. Anyone, like for example, after Nyeri, Nyandarua, Isiolo, a lot of circles of conscience are on the way, they're in the pipeline, they are being prepared. So that is how it works. So at the annual delegates conference, on the second day, you have the motions of the budget to discuss what you want and to approve documents and also discuss what you want to see and also discuss the governance of Amnesty International. So that is where now you also participate. But again, Amnesty is not a one-day story of only at the delegates conference. It now feeds back to the circles of conscience and such Kikao. Are we together? And so I think I'm done. Any question? Someone would like to put a comment, a question, yes? The procedure of joining, go to the website, choose on the category of membership you want to click.
I'm trying and
Okay. Thank you, Matthias. And yeah, so yeah, alternatively, I think pay bill, they can share with you, they'll support you. These people are very wonderful, they support you. Sawa. Thank you.
Okay, mine is like an inquiry. Okay, maybe I cannot be in a position to offer membership. Guys. Yes. So my question is, maybe I'm not in a position to become a member, but okay, me for my case, I'm good in volunteering, both mentorship, physically. Me like ukinipatia friend atokea. That's from my side. How can you like now work with me? Because like kuna watu who, okay, to me I believe in the clause that giving back to society is better than pay. Because sometimes when you ask for pay, it may be a bit a hassle, but that you can be there for the activities, it's easy. So like how can now I partner with you? Like I'm a member, but I can volunteer, yes.
Wonderful. Nani wants to volunteer?
So we work with a lot of volunteers, and we have a volunteer database. So we are very much welcome to having. If you'd like to volunteer with Amnesty, I can share a link with you, so you can register whenever there's an activity that needs to happen. We always reach out to that specific database, and as an organization, we have different things we're working on. We could reach out if maybe your profession is you're a lawyer. We could reach out to you. Whenever we send that specific maybe advert on this kind of volunteering, if it fits you, we're any lawyer and you're in that specific database, you can reach out and say, hey, I want to be part of this this process. It's not only tied to come any lawyer. We engage with different other professions as well. So you're very much welcome. I will share the link with all of us. Yeah, and also those who are watching us online.
Okay, thank you. Another question. Kuna swali lingine? I would very love to have all the medics come on board, and even if you're a non-medic, please come and be a member. I think we should have another Kikao here, and all these medics meet the doctors in charge at Amnesty, was your story, and for them to share their power that Amnesty is the home of everyone. We have auditors within the board. We have an auditor, different people doing their own initiatives. We have Tabitha, the legal mind within the board. We have a lot of people. Categories ni mob, so mtu asifeel left out. Sawa. You're a social worker, yes, it matters. You're a psychologist, yes, it matters. Please come on board and join our membership. I think that is it for now. All I have to say, thank you very much for joining us this evening. And it's been a great evening. Nani haja enjoy? I just want to do a nani haja enjoy, but who has enjoyed? Wow. Can we clap for our guest first? Tabitha, you're so happy. I want to believe Tabitha is online na amepokea hizo zake. And so, yeah, for me, yeah, I think let's meet another day. I believe Tabitha should come to Nyeri or to Lipe. What do you think? Yes. Not necessarily to pay us, but alipisha hiyo slot yenye amekosa kufanya nini? Kujifikisha. What do you think, you people? What do you think? Yes. And the fact that she's a well of knowledge, yatafute siku nyingine akuje tukunywe kahawa. What do you think about that? Sawa. So I think on my list of things, I've finished everything that I wanted to say.